Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. This is Nathan Daley. I'm your law enforcement translator. Your 13-year veteran here to give you guys insight on all things law enforcement in this country. Now, before I dive into it, shout out to my new subscribers. Welcome to the channel, you guys. Make yourself at home. We have a lot to talk about. Also, if you haven't already, please go and vote for the holiday contest. As you know, it ends December 25th. Also, stay tuned for the community tab for our live stream coming up. All right, can't wait. I'm excited. Now, what are we talking about? We are talking about this trial. We're talking about Daunte Wright. Tragically lost his life by the hands of Officer Potter. Now, this is day 3, you guys. If you haven't caught the first 2 breakdowns that I did on the trial, I will link them at the top here from day 1, day 2. This is day 3 review. This is the review of the trial and the cross-examination of Sgt Johnson. Very key witness in this trial. Why? Because he actually, in my opinion, put the nail in this whole entire coffin. He's the key, he's the backbone to this whole trial. Why do I say that? When he's on the stand, they're asking him these questions. They start to break down the story. Hey, what happened? What did you see from your side? They caught him in a trick bag. They caught him lying. They caught him lying. You guys, he's been on the stand. He's been completely disingenuous the entire time. His behavior, his antics at the scene are questionable. You can question his leadership. What did they say? As he's being interviewed, he talks about what happened. He says, listen, I showed up. I'm there to back them up. I'm on the passenger side. He notices Daunte start to become a little bit uneasy. He starts to resist the arrest, and then he starts to get into the driver's side. Sgt Johnson says at the time, he said, listen, what I did was I opened the door, I went in, and I immediately went to put the gear shift into park. I wanted to prevent him from changing the gears. He then said he went for the key of the ignition and he turned it. Now, this is key. No pun, right? No pun intended. This is key. Why? He said he wanted to stop him from activating the vehicle, turning it on, and driving off. That's what he wanted to do. The video shows him reaching and grabbing Daunte's arm. He has a good grip on him. And this is how he explained it.
And did you said something about grabbing the shift knob, correct?
Yes.
And what did you do with that?
I pushed it forward, which would be towards the park position.
So had it been out of park?
I don't believe so.
Okay. But you said you pushed it forward. I'm just trying to...
I was pushing it as far as it would go forward. That way I knew that it was in the park position.
And did you know whether the engine was on at the time?
I don't.
You indicated you reached toward the keys, right?
Yes.
What were you trying to reach for the keys for?
I was taking the key and I was turning it forward, which would be towards the off position.
So you were attempting to turn the vehicle off?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know, but you didn't know whether it was on or off?
I don't know if it was.
And at that point, what was Mr. Wright doing?
He was struggling with Officer Lucky.
Okay. Was he able to get back into the vehicle at that point?
Yes.
And what did you think he was going to try and do at that point?
Drive away.
And so at some point, did you remove your hand from the shift knob?
Yes.
And what did you do then?
I took both my hands and held on to Mr. Wright's right arm.
And were you able to grab his right arm?
Yes.
And why did you grab his right arm?
2 things. One, to prevent him from shifting the vehicle, and one, to put him into a handcuffing position.
At that time, did you know what Officer Lucky was doing?
I couldn't see Officer Lucky at that time.
Okay. Did you know what Officer Potter was doing?
I don't.
And you grabbed him to put him in a handcuffing position I'm not sure how to ask this, but who else did you think was going to help you handcuff him? Does that make sense?
Yes. I believed it would either be Officer Lucky or Officer Potter that would be controlling his left arm to put him in a handcuffing position.
Sgt Johnson then starts to explain how he had a very strong grip on Daunte's right arm. He had two hands on his right arm. He had a very strong hold on him. Now, what's interesting is this piece next. They asked him, like, okay, well, hey, did you hear Officer Potter say taser, taser, taser? He said, oh, I heard it one time. They said, did you see her? He said, no, I couldn't see her. He said, well, did you know where Officer Lucky was? He said, well, I couldn't really tell where he's at, but I believe that he had him in a position where we could actually come together and handcuff Daunte while he's inside the vehicle. Now, they asked a very interesting question. They said, did you hear the taser go off? Did you hear her say taser, taser, taser? He said, yes. And in that moment, I let go of Daunte and I stepped back. They said, well, why'd you let go? Well, because I didn't want to be shocked, because I assumed that the taser was going to be deployed. I didn't want the prongs to hit me. You guys, listen, when that taser, the cords hit you and you get caught in between it, it does hurt. It's really uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. I've been tased accidentally by a coworker. Again, you guys, these things happen while you're mixing it up with people. You can get hit with the officer's weapon. I've been pepper sprayed by another officer. I've been pepper sprayed with my own pepper spray. That's another story. But what did he say? In that moment, he said, I heard a banging noise. I heard a noise. And they asked him, okay, well, did it sound consistent with a taser? And he said, yeah. You guys, do you know what a taser sounds like when it goes off? It doesn't sound like a gun. This is where I start looking at Sgt Johnson a little funny, you guys. I start looking at him funny.
Yes.
What did you hear Officer Potter say?
I heard something to the effect of, I'll tase you.
And what happened after that?
I heard the verbal command of taser, taser, taser.
And then what happened?
And then I heard a loud pop.
And did you know what the loud pop meant?
I thought at the time that it was a taser.
When you heard taser, 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 what did you do with Mr. Wright?
I let go of his right arm.
And why did you do that?
I didn't know where those taser probes were going to be going, and I didn't want my hand in between them.
And when you let go of him, you had hold of his right arm. Was that the only way you were holding him?
Yes.
And did you see his position at the time that you let go of him?
All I could tell was that he was sitting in the driver's seat.
And where were you looking at that moment in time? Do you recall?
Kind of down towards the center console.
Okay. So after you let go of Mr. Wright, what happened next?
I saw him going for the shift knob, and I started backing out of the vehicle.
Now, Sgt Johnson. Now I'm starting to look at you a little funny. You're starting to look a little suspicious. Why do I say that? The moment he said he couldn't tell the difference between the taser going off and then a gun going off with inside close proximity to a vehicle, inside a vehicle, nah. Now you're looking suspicious, Sgt Johnson. You're looking a little funny, sir. I'm gonna tell you why I say that. If anyone has ever been, if you've been to a shooting range, indoor, gun range, if you ever, well, you probably haven't, but I've had a gun go off while inside of a vehicle dealing with someone. And when I tell you that's it for your ears, they're done. They're done for about a good smooth 15, 20 minutes. You're not hearing anything, you guys. That sound of that concussion, right? When the gun goes off, you feel it in your chest. You feel it in your ears. You feel the pressure. I'm telling you right now, there's a distinct difference. The taser, when we pull the taser, it's equivalent to a strong hand clap. But a gun going off inside of a vehicle, very close quarters, You're talking about deafening, complete deafening. And for him to say he can't distinguish between the two, I find it very, yeah. And this is where his testimony starts to fall apart.
You're under arrest, Daunte. Just stay back. You did?
Yes!
Okay.
I grabbed the wrong fucking gun! I shot him! Oh my god!
Okay. Kim, sit down.
PI access 63rd and Captain Drive, flight from 38 stop, start north on the red.
Let me explain to you the angle of the defense. The defense wants to paint this picture a certain way. What are they trying to do? They're trying to argue the time frame. There's a time slot when the use of force actually took place. Though the use of force was not accurate, it's not the force that she intended to use, how do they plan on maneuvering this? They pivot. What they say? They say, listen, even though she made a mistake, her actions were still justified. How do they come to that conclusion? They're trying to paint the picture that Officer Lucky and Sgt Johnson were in fear of receiving great bodily harm, potentially death, because partially their bodies were still inside the vehicle, and the fear of them being dragged off is what she was thinking. This is what the defense is trying to do. But Sgt Johnson really put a monkey wrench in their entire strategy, and I'm gonna tell you why. What did they ask him? See, where Sgt Johnson's the key role to this is because he purposely went in and manipulated the gear shift. He manipulated the keys. He himself said that when he noticed Daunte actually getting a hold of the gear shift and shifting the gear into drive, he said he backed out of the vehicle. Now, they have the power of perception on their hands. How? Officer Potters, what does she do? She is looking at everything from her perspective. In her mind, they can argue that, hey, this is what she saw. But what's the problem with that? The people who were actually the ones physically involved were hands-on. Here's the problem. They actually had a good grip on Daunte while they're in the car, and it wasn't until Officer Potters intervened is when Daunte and everyone broke free. And that's when he drove off. So now, keep that in mind.
You did?
Yes!
Okay.
I grabbed the wrong fucking gun! I shot him! Oh my god!
Okay. Kim, sit down. Okay. 3205, we got shots fired. Start more units, please. We're gonna need additional units to Noble and 63rd.
Just breathe. Yep. Are you okay? Just breathe. Just breathe.
Reach your neck and 7 at gunpoint, 63rd and Captain Drive.
Okay, one of the point, 6
And
Kim, take a breath, okay?
Just breathe.
car injured as well. As soon as we get additional cars, I'll check for injuries. Suspects are not compliant. They're moving it.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Just
Bridges have from all one on the unit.
Kim, that guy was trying to take off with me in the car.
okay.
3205, can you start some additional supervisors from other agencies, please?
He's still.
Yeah,
Crystal's en route. 4142 en route. Not locked in route.
Kim, take a breath, okay?
Crystal's en route.
Kim, take a breath. You're all right, Kim.
Three tonight, and we'll take 2 rigs, stage them a couple of blocks out.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Copy, stage couple blocks up.
Driver, stop breathing.
Oh, no.
Driver not breathing.
No,
I'll take an additional squad and we'll yank him out. But get him here on the rest. I'm by myself, holding him at gunpoint.
Portion work.
Kim, take a breath. Kim, breathe, okay?
We can get the road shut down, westbound.
Yeah, just park
I'll take it there.
my squad, not yours. Park with my squad.
Northbound on 53rd.
Kim, take a breath. Kim, you're okay. Take a breath, okay?
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
3 tonight can make it 3 rigs. I got 1 male not breathing, 1 female with facial lacerations, and then I've got another civilian car that I have not been able to check on yet.
Copy, 3 rigs.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
325, we'll take anybody that's available. We need additional help.
5153, I'll be arriving.
5153, copy.
Squad, come to me at Christopher and Catherine so we can get the driver out and the passenger, and then we'll have to check on anyone else after. But the driver is not breathing according to the passenger.
Oh my God! What have I done? What have I done? Oh my God!
Several Brooklyn Park units are arriving.
Portion 05.
Yeah, we're all right.
Passenger's moving around. I can't see him, so we're going to need to extricate him if he's not breathing. So I'll wait for additional to come up with a plan. Big 207 is arriving.
Okay.
Portion 06.
Hey, Anthony, and you just sit down here, okay?
3219, the suspect I'm at gunpoint at is a flee from 38 stop.
Portion 06.
This video is very, very troubling. Why? It puts Sgt Johnson in the limelight. It starts to show, hey, where's your leadership abilities at? It shows his inability to lead under high stress, high intense situations. He has an officer that's down. He has an officer who can no longer perform her duties. You have a second officer that's in training. You're here. You're standing around, you're looking around, you don't know what to do. You just let a suspect flee the scene after being shot at. You don't know where he was shot. You don't know who was shot. Could have been him, and it could have been the passenger. But in that moment, a few seconds later, you witness him actually head-on strike another vehicle. You then hear on the radio another officer say, hey, I have them at gunpoint. He froze, you guys. He froze. He froze at the worst time. He's down. He has another officer that's down, and he has a rookie who is confused and has better composure than the 2 most experienced officers at the scene, them totaling almost 40 years experience combined. Listen, you guys, I tell you this all the time. It's not about years of experience. It's not about how long you've been a cop. It's almost like saying, hey, this person's 50 years old, and you assume that they're wise. You assume that they're mature. It's the same thing in the profession. It's the same thing in law enforcement. Years don't equate skill. Years don't equate talent. Years don't equate to leadership. Just because you've been in the profession all these years doesn't mean anything in policing. It's about your ability to learn, adapt, evolve, grow, the intentionality behind learning the craft, learning people, understanding people, your ability to serve others, your ability to sacrifice. your ability to be and stay humble. See, these are the things, right? These are the things, these are the qualities. Integrity.
Before Miss Potter said, I shot him, did you know that that sound had been a gunshot?
No.
And after that, did you observe what happened to the white car?
Yeah, I observed it continue eastbound down 63rd and drive into oncoming traffic.
And did you, obviously you heard that there was a crash down that direction.
Yes.
So sometimes it's maybe easier for us to refer to the stop scene and the crash scene. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because there were essentially two scenes that day.
Yes.
Did you go down to the crash scene?
No.
And why not?
Because Officer Salvosa was already there.
What should he have done? He or the rookie should have followed that vehicle down to the crash site and assisted that officer that was on the scene. You could hear in the video, you can hear that officer yelling, "Get your hands up. Let me see your hands." The officer goes to the radio and says, "Hey, I'm here by myself. They said the driver's not breathing." He never relayed, the sergeant never even told him that he possibly could be shot. Oh, man, this whole thing was a disaster, and we're watching it unfold in these videos. Now, a lot of people are having issues with Officer Potters and how she responded, her reaction. She was thinking about herself, you guys. And regardless of what thoughts she had, those thoughts are her own. Whatever judgment she was going through within herself, however she was feeling, no one will know. No one will know. But what we do know is that she gave up in that moment. She gave up. She gave up.
Hey, both you guys, okay. Are you anything injured?
6207, whoever's got a bunker, come on up to Catherine, 63rd.
Oh my God.
700 for domestic, 15-year-old son, 2624 94th Avenue. 414 arriving.
Working on 6.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Daddy, can you go call Chuck for me?
Yep. Hey, Tim, as soon as we're code 4 here, I'm going to get all that taken care of for you, okay?
108, 500 domestic.
You guys good?
I'm just take care of that first, and then I'll need somebody. Take a breath, okay, Kim?
What happens next, you guys? What's the issue? The issue is we have an officer that's out of commission, mentally, emotionally. As a sergeant, what are you supposed to do? Here's the thing. We see one of our own that's hurting and it hurts us. And we want to console them. But at the same time, listen, she's safe. She is safe. There's still other responsibilities, and Sgt Johnson failed that aspect. That's leadership. Poor leadership. Now he decides to stay and deal with the officer, Officer Potters. Listen, you guys, after a shooting, your gun is taken from you. This is standard protocol. This is procedure. But what does he do?
And while you were still back at the stop scene, did you do something with Miss Potter's firearm?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jurors what you did?
Due to her mental state of not knowing what she might do, I knew that her firearm was a piece of evidence at that time. So I removed her firearm and put it in my holster and put my gun in her holster, just so that evidence was preserved.
Stay right here. Stay right here, okay? Kim, I'm I'm going to take this, but give you mine, okay?
Don't just let me
No.
kill myself. Like,
No, that's not happening, Kim. I'm giving you my gun, okay? I'm just going to hold on to yours. All right? Kim? We'll get it all figured out, okay?
I don't know. I don't know what's happened.
Okay, Kim, sit down, please, okay? Put my gun in your holster.
I don't know what happened. Okay, okay. I don't know.
But can you come over and sit by Lucky?
Yeah.
Right?
I'll shut the camera off after.
I'm still rolling.
It's fine. I don't.
He takes her gun and then he puts his gun in her holster. You guys, you can't do that. You can't do that. She's out of the game, right? She's out of the game at this point. She can't do, and she's not supposed to do anything. The moment we fire our weapons and the incident is done, that's it, right? We're hauled off away, we're separated, you know, and we got to handle our business. We got to handle the administrative stuff. He gives her his loaded weapon. He puts her weapon in his holster, the evidence. What if something happened? He needed to use his weapon. What an imbecile. What an... Now, very, very, very poor choices. Poor leadership. She then goes into the car. They finally separate her. Medics show up at the scene and they're talking to her.
Yes.
And did you, subsequent to that, or later, obtain more information that concerned you about Officer Potter?
Yes.
And what was that?
That another officer was concerned that she may harm herself.
And which officer was that?
That was Officer Clean Fricky.
Do you know how to spell her last name?
Yes, F as in Frank, Ricke.
And so, what did you do?
Officer Potter was sitting in a squad, and so I had gone over to her and discreetly asked if I could see my firearm that was in her holster. I was able to turn away from her with my firearm, remove the magazine from it and the one round that was in the chamber. So at that time there were no rounds in the firearm.
Or somebody else. Okay. All I want you to worry about now is...
There's a female in the back of 332. She has some facial injuries. Can you just make sure she gets seen?
No problem, got it.
Kim, can I see my gun real quick? I'm going to give it right back to you, okay? I'm just going to give her my gun for now. Okay. I have yours, okay? Chuck is on his way, all right?
In the moment of her distress, she's asking for her union rep. You know, doesn't look good, you guys. This doesn't look good. And here's the thing. He gives her a loaded weapon after seeing that she's under this much distress. She's battling, she's in anguish within herself, this internal battle. He gives her a loaded gun. What if she decided to shoot herself with it? You know, her weapon should have been taken. When another officer came to him and said, hey, listen, something about her right now doesn't seem too right. She seems like she's thinking about hurting herself. They start talking about her mental health in this moment, which is a real thing with law enforcement. He then has to go and take the gun back from her. But what does he do? This clown takes the gun, which is his gun. He removes the bullets and ammunition, and it's all on camera, as you guys can see. He puts an unloaded gun back in her holster. He gave her an empty gun. but she's carrying bullets on her belt. She has magazines on her belt. She can still load the weapon. You guys, that's not how it works. You know, let me tell you a story. I was involved in a shooting, and after it was chaos, you guys, from start to finish. And it was my first, obviously it was my first shooting, and it was different. That's why I understand, you know, this is why it's important that I do this channel, because I have to give you guys insight. Got to give you perspective. Got to bring context to the conversation. The moment my supervisor showed up, he looks at me, he said, "Daley, you okay?" I said, yeah, I'm good. He said, "Okay, I heard you fired your weapon." I said, "I did." He said, "All right, I need your weapon. I need your weapon. I need your gun belt." They took everything from me. And that's how you do it. You take the whole gun belt. I'm completely out of the game. Internal Affairs shows up. The GBI show up to do their investigation. Everybody shows up. Everybody shows up. Then you have people come in for the chaplain to speak to you. Hey, you need to talk to someone, right? They do this process. They have a process, you guys. But after my incident was done, everyone's arrested. The scene is safe. The scene is secure. It's okay. All right, Daley, we need you over here. We're going to ask you some questions. Here's what you need to do. Here are your rights. Here's this, here's that. They break it all down. But they took everything. They didn't give me a new gun. My gun is evidence. Right? Then you get some days off after that. Right? You can't go back to work right away. There's a process. You know, and so when I'm seeing him do this, I'm like, what is he doing? Again, you guys, here's the reality. Again, all officers are not created equal. All police departments are not created equal. There's a lot of police departments out here. So then what?
Correct?
Yes.
And between the time of taser, and a second later, did you release from the body of
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And then you went outside the car, correct?
Yes.
And you're disoriented, correct?
Yes.
And that's because of your struggle with him and the loud noise. Fair statement?
Yeah, the loud noise.
And you, as soon as you got out of the car, according to the videos, that car took off like a jet. Fair statement? Did you see it in the video?
Yes.
You agree you said that, right?
Yes.
And if he had taken off with you in that car halfway, what would have happened to you? What would you think would be the worst that would happen?
Probably dragged.
Dragged and what?
Injured.
Seriously injured, maybe even dead, right?
Yes.
And if that were the case, would an officer in your position, with Officer Potter trying to stop him from resisting with you and resisting Lucky, would it be fair for that officer to use a firearm to stop him?
By state statute, yes.
By state statute.
Yes.
There's a statute that says to avoid death or grave bodily harm, you have a right to use deadly force, correct?
Yes.
And you're...
Now, this is when we start to see the prosecution start to earn their tokens. What did they do? They put Sgt Johnson in a trick bag from the very beginning. And I don't think he saw it coming. You know, I'm watching him on the stand. He doesn't have it all together, right? What did they say? What were the elements? Watch how this puzzle comes together, you guys. What they do, prosecution looked at a couple of things. They said, here's what we're battling with. We know the defense is trying to use a use of force claim and say, hey, listen, the defense is arguing real strong on this. They're saying these officers were put in danger. And even though Potter's got it wrong, technically she got it right because the circumstances made it justified. What did the prosecution say? They looked at these elements and say, hold on. Sgt Johnson, you know that when you go into a vehicle to apprehend a suspect, that it's dangerous. He said, yeah. And you know that potentially you can be dragged. He said, yes, I do know that. Now, mind you guys, he's completely true. Again, right? I know all about this. This is something that we do. Reach in cars and cut the keys out. Take the keys out of the vehicle, put the car in park so that the suspect can't get away. It's dangerous, but we do it. What does he say? He goes in there, he manipulates the gear shift. He turns the key. Remember what I told you from the beginning. He grabs Daunte's arm with two hands. Two hands. Officer Lucky said in his testimony, he had Daunte's left arm. He had him secured. What'd the prosecutor say? Genius.
Yes.
And you indicated that you wanted to keep him from fleeing.
Yes.
And why did you then grab the shift knob of the car when you first reached into the car?
To keep it in park.
And to prevent it from moving?
Yes.
And when you had your hand on the shift knob, did the car move?
No.
When you had your hand on Mr. Wright, when you had both your left and your right hands on Mr. Wright's right arm, did the car move?
No.
After Officer Potter used her taser, did the car move?
After the taser?
Correct. I'm sorry. After she said taser and used her gun, did the car move?
Yes.
Just want to clarify a couple of things. So, in entering the car, are you taking some risks?
Yes.
And by grabbing the shift knob, did you alleviate that risk?
Yes.
You indicated earlier about a weapons warrant. Is it always good to be concerned about the potential of a weapon when you make a traffic stop?
Yes.
And so that makes you, I guess, extra aware to the presence of a weapon. Would that be fair?
Yes.
At any time during your interaction with Mr. Wright, did you see a weapon?
No.
Did you see him reach for a weapon?
No.
The prosecutor. This is chess, you guys. I'm going to tell you how this chess move worked. I'll tell you how it worked. What did he say? You guys missed it. He talks about the behavior and the mindset of both officers. The mindset. He has to dispel the fact that they weren't in fear. They weren't in fear. They had control over Daunte. They had physical control over him. When did they lose control, though? Because the question is this. The car was not moving. You were able to secure the car. He asked him, he said, yeah, the car was secured. The keys turned. The car was put in park. I did all these things. I had his arm. We had Daunte under control. Not under arrest, but we had him under control. We were controlling him. This was a process. We were getting there. But what happened? He said he heard taser, 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 right? Then he said he heard a loud noise. Earlier he said it sounded consistent with a taser. The prosecutor asked him and he says, hold on. Earlier you said the sound disoriented you. Why would the sound of a taser do that? It wouldn't. It's not strong enough. It's not loud enough. So you're disoriented. Yeah, I was. The sound, he said the sound was so loud, but you couldn't tell the difference between that and the gun. You couldn't distinguish between the two sounds. Prosecutors is putting him, setting him up. He's setting him up. Now what does he say? He says now, here we have this situation. He said the moment he heard the taser sound, the loud bang, he backs off. backs off. He said the moment he let Daunte go, Daunte he was reaching for the gear shift. He said in that moment, he removed himself out of the vehicle. You see it on the dash cam. Both officers get out of the way before Daunte drives off. Why is that important, you guys? Why is that important? Here's the trick bag. What did Sgt Johnson just prove? He proved that there was no fear, there was no danger to be dragged. Why? Because they secured the vehicle already. The vehicle was already secured. Daunte was detained. He was being detained. He was being controlled in that moment. What's the prosecution looking at? They're looking at the moment that Officer Potters intervened while these two officers were hands-on. She then created that risk. She created that potential danger. She created that atmosphere. She is the only change agent in this entire scenario. Vehicle secure. Daunte is in the process of being detained physically, hands-on by two officers. She comes in and she shoots Daunte. They let him go. They step out of the vehicle. He puts the car in drive and he speeds off. Sgt Johnson testifies and says, when I saw him go towards the gear shift, I got out the vehicle. Checkmate, you guys. Checkmate. And that's the trick bag. He said it. Now listen, you guys, you don't think they're going to nail this in closing. Their closing arguments are going to be fierce. What did he say? There is no danger. They removed themselves out of the way before. Here's how it works, you guys. This concept, this idea, this officers being in fear for our safety and fear for our lives, this is a real thing now. This is a real thing. But for us to use deadly force, what do we need to have? You guys don't know this. The elements, right? This is what we need. Ability, opportunity, jeopardy, right? Ability, opportunity, and jeopardy. These are key. If these three things align themselves, then we're authorized. What do they say though? Does the suspect have the ability to carry out this threat? Do they have the ability to harm us, to cause death, right? Is the ability there? That's one. Two is the opportunity. Opportunity. When we say ability, we say, do they have the means to do it? Right? Do they have a knife? Do they have a gun? Do they have a car? Yes. Opportunity. Are we in? Is it possible? Can they carry it out? The opportunity. Was it there? Were they put in a position to where he had the opportunity to cause great bodily harm? Yes and no. There was a window. There was a window. The question is, did they fall within that window? That's the question. This is what they're looking at. Now it's the last one. Jeopardy. Ability, opportunity, and jeopardy. Jeopardy, we're looking at jeopardy. We're looking at an imminent threat. It has to happen right now. Right now. Is it right now? The moment they stepped out of the vehicle, you lose the jeopardy. They're no longer in jeopardy. That window, the threshold for that is very thin. You got to be right. You got to be right there. She's not even on the line, you guys. She's not even on the line. Why do I say that? Here's the trick bag, you guys. What did they just prove with this testimony? They proved that the officers were put in more danger the moment she pulled the trigger. Her intervention put the officers in more danger than Daunte Wright. her careless actions put the officers in danger, not Daunte. See, and this is the part we got to talk about. Some people think that Sgt Johnson's testimony was a home run. Nah, you guys. You know what it looks like when those home runs are hit? And you get that guy who's just waiting like this and he catches the ball. Yeah. Yeah. She put the officers in danger. Daunte was able to drive off because she fired the gun. Pay attention. Pay attention. Ability, opportunity, and jeopardy, you guys. That's what's required for officers to be able to use deadly force. Perfect example. You have a gentleman who is, say I'm standing here and there's a gentleman that's, let's say 50 feet away with a handgun. And I'm approaching him. And he has the gun in his hand, his right hand. He has the gun down to his side. Now, he has threatened that he's going to shoot me. And he's like, I don't want you guys getting close. I'm going to shoot you. Here's the problem with this scenario. Does he have the ability to do it? Yes. Why? He has a gun. He can shoot me from 50 feet away. Is the opportunity there? Yeah. Right? He said he wanted to do it. He talked about it. He expressed it. He can carry it out. He can carry this threat out. The opportunity is there. What about the jeopardy? The gun's down to his side. His hands are down by his side. He's holding the gun. What do I need? What do I need in that moment to be able to justify using deadly force against him? Is him having the gun down to his side a threat to me? No, it's not. Here's where we're talking about as officers, where sound judgment has to come into play. This is what we're lacking when we see these scenarios. Officers that aren't making good sound judgment. Be able to make sound judgment under severe, stressful situations, under fear. What happens? At what point am I able to justifiably shoot him? He has the ability. The opportunity is there, but the jeopardy is not present. What do I need? I need him to manifest the threat. I need the threat to manifest itself. What does that look like? Down to your side, the simple raise of his wrist, the simple bending of his wrist, just the gun hitting maybe 7 o'clock. The barrel of the gun hitting 7, 8 o'clock. Boom. I'm taking him out. I'm taking him out. You raise that gun around 7, 8 o'clock. He's done, you guys. That's the manifestation of the threat. That's the jeopardy. I can articulate that. I can articulate that. All right, you guys. So that's it for this cross-examination. Wasn't really much to it. But as you know, there were some key components in this. Wanted to really point out some things to show you guys. Now, as you know, Officer Potters is going to take the stand. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, so stay tuned for that. You guys, if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, please take a look at that. I think you will enjoy it. And with that, you guys, thank you so much for your support. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. And with that, please allow these truths to find you where those lies have left you. And with that, good night. God bless.